Now there's always, of any checklist, there's always exceptions, right? So the exception to the rule that ROIC and ROE are not getting smaller would be a relatively young company that is adding a lot of infrastructure to their business as they grow.
Mm.
And their ROIC and ROE were monstrously high, like 40, 50%, some really crazy number, because they just had a unique product. They kicked it out the door. There was just massive earnings on it, but those are all coming down to earth as competitors come in, and return on equity, return on invested capital is also coming down to earth. But those companies will tend to produce very high ROIC and ROE anyway. They're going to be up in the 20% range, 30% range as they come down. So it requires knowing the business, and we don't invest too many times into businesses that are new like that. So we don't tend to run into that very often. Apple Computer comes to mind again as a company that was producing enormous returns on equity and return on invested capital. And then as it got bigger and bigger and bigger, those things started to come down. Doesn't make it a bad company. Just have to know your company. All right.
Okay.
That one? Good?
Okay.
Next.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah. Next.
Okay. Next. The business has low maintenance CapEx.
The business has low maintenance capital expenditures.
Now, this is...
That is an interesting one.
Yeah. So let's talk about what that is. So
Okay.
capital expenditure is what companies call it when they buy something that's going to last. It's going to be something you use up, but it's going to last a long time. It's going to last longer than a year, typically substantially longer than a year. So if you buy, windshield wiper fluid, you use that up pretty quickly. If you buy a truck, you don't use it up quickly. So windshield wiper fluid is an expense, and the truck is a capital expense.
Okay.
And that means you don't get to deduct it from taxes. So this is a kind of a tax thing. But it's also very important to know the difference between capital expenditures and maintenance capital expenditures. So really, capital expenditures for me break down into two categories: maintenance and growth. Maintenance and growth. So let's think about if you own real estate that you're renting to somebody. Maintenance CapEx is buying a washing machine to replace the old one. It's buying a refrigerator to replace the old one. You're doing something you have to do, or your tenant is going to leave.
It's when you have an apartment building that you live in and own an apartment in, and you have an HOA. If you have a good HOA, they will save money for a new roof eventually on that building, because you got to get a new roof every 20 years or so. Right. And if you don't have the money, then that's going to be a major problem for everybody who lives there at that time. So I would call that maintenance, because you know it's coming. You just got to do it. It's not changing the value of the building. It's just keeping it the same.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what maintenance is. And if you want to think about it, you're not able to raise the rent just because you put in another washing machine.
Or the new. In fact,
the only thing,
you definitely
the only thing that happens if
roof.
you don't do it is rent goes down.
Yeah.
Because they move out. All right.
Yes.
So maintenance is just keeping things the same. All right. With your house or your apartment. Now, capital expenditure for growth means you put a mother-in-law unit in the garage.
Mm.
All right.
And now you can rent that out for more money.
$30,000, and now you can rent that out, right? Assuming it's legal. All right. So that's the difference. And what we're looking here is the maintenance side of capital expenditure, because we want to own a certain kind of a business. We want to own a business that doesn't require that you constantly have to fix stuff in order to even have your revenues stay the same. So, for example, a car business like GM, they require a lot of maintenance. They're constantly having to retool to just sell the cars, just to get the car out the door, right? It's not going to grow the business at all when you replace last year's models with this year's models, but you got to do a whole different bunch of robots, or you got to, right? You got to do all this maintenance stuff, and it's not increasing revenues any. That's maintenance CapEx.
Yeah.
Okay. So we like businesses. We prefer businesses that have a franchise, a business model that doesn't require that you do a lot of maintenance. Maintenance businesses are tougher to own. So, for example, a railroad is a maintenance kind of business. You got to constantly maintain your tracks. You got to replace locomotives. You got to replace freight cars. If you don't do that, your revenues go down. Right?
Yeah.
So we like Coca Cola kinds of businesses where they don't have to maintain anything much at all to just keep selling syrup.
They've got a whole manufacturing, bottling plants all over the world.
But they don't have to retool it. Once you build it, it just runs for years and years and years and years. And that's beautiful. Then you don't have to constantly buy new railroad trains just to kind of keep up. So you want to look at your business and see, as a business, is it heavy on maintenance or is it heavy on growth CapEx? So, for example, See's Candy, hardly any maintenance at all and hardly any growth CapEx at all. They just don't grow. They just grow with the cost of living. And it's a wonderful business, produces a lot of cash flow. And that's a great business for us. So we like those kinds of businesses.
I'm just not sure I'm hearing the reason why. Like, a car company has to do a lot of maintenance. A railroad company has to do a lot of maintenance. So
because
what?
They eat up your owner earnings. The maintenance just chews up owner earnings. So you want to have
but if it's just inherent to the business.
Right.
I don't know that I have a big problem with that. Well, I mean, I suppose you could argue that like that's a place where things could get screwed up, and that's a place where shortcuts could be taken, and then the business could go downhill slowly over time. Like you could make that argument, but I don't know if it's inherent to the.
Again, think about real estate. Okay, so you're going to get a certain amount of rent in from this building, but you bought an old crappy place, and you're going to have to fix up the basement and the foundation and the septic system. None of that's growth.
It's definitely growth if you have to fix it up.
No.
I think so.
Not. Well, here's how you know. Did you raise the rent?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Well, if you bought a crappy house and you can rent it for $200 a month, and then you fix it up, which is what you just said, and then you can rent it for $1,500 a month, then that's growth.
Okay, I can see how you can twist my example.
It's not twisting.
To turn it into something else. But my building is a building renting for $1,000 a month, and then big rainstorm happens and the basement floods.
Okay.
And now I got to go fix that whole foundation just to keep my tenant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So you discover after you buy this particular business that it has a tremendous amount of what's called deferred maintenance.
Oh.
Right? So this is deferred maintenance. It should have been done. It wasn't done. Now you got to do it. And all of a sudden your own earnings just disappears. And that happens in real estate all the time. People think if you watch one of these flip the real estate shows, you see that they go in there and the big gotcha on these businesses that they buy are construction problems that they didn't see. They're hidden behind the walls.
Yeah.
They just missed it. And all of a sudden their own earnings are going to nothing and they're really in trouble. And that makes all for the drama in the show.
Yeah.
So my example is one where there's been deferred maintenance and you can't avoid it. You've got to keep your tenant. So you got to do the work, and it chews up years of owner earnings when something like that happens. So we want to avoid businesses like that. Now, it doesn't, to your point, it doesn't make it a bad business to have high maintenance CapEx. It all just depends on how big the CapEx is relative to your own earnings, relative to your free cash flow. How big is this? Let's say you have hardly any growth CapEx. It's all maintenance, but it's not that big. Okay, well,
Yeah.
when I say low maintenance CapEx, it's a reflection that it's a very small part of your overall free cash flow. So that's really what we're aiming for. You guys, if you enjoyed this video and you feel it was valuable in teaching you more about how to invest, hit the like button and please share the video with your friends. And if you want more investing content, subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the button on the screen. We got a free gift for you. Thanks again for watching.